Hello, and welcome to another edition of Navigating Life with Coach Lo. I am, as usual, very excited to have a special guest with me today. And I just welcome you, audience, because you are in for a treat. As I was, really surprised. We think we know our friends, right? But then, as life journeys on, sometime a Facebook post or a conversation or something may start and you find out details about people that you love that you had no idea about. Well, that's what happened with Toya and I. Toya, she posted a post that broke me down. I was like, hey, I was just going about my day. What is this all about? But Toya is with us today, and you will understand what it was all about. So it's not all grim and dim, and it's not all heavy, but it is real life. And she is still with us. So it is such a blessing to have my girlfriend Toya Knowles on with me. Toya is not only my friend, but we have been hairstylists that have worked shoulder to shoulder. We have both been in the industry for over 30 years. Um, we have lived in Chicago together. We live here now in Dallas together. So it has just been a delight to be your friend, to get to know you in different seasons of your life, and for us to do some of the things that we've had the opportunity to do together. And so, without further ado, I am going to turn the mic to Toya so that Toya can share with you who she is and what she's doing and what she's all about. So, Toya, please introduce the audience to who Toya Knowles, the short hair guru, Chicago, Dallas. Who are you, girl?
Hey everyone, now you didn't already introduce me in a nutshell, but I am Toya Knowles. I am a friend of Lolita Harris. We've been knowing each other for many, many years. I am a domestic violence survivor, a stroke survivor. I have been a hairstylist now, I think it's 31 years now? For 31 years. Born and raised in Chicago. I now live in the big state of Dallas, Texas. And I am literally enjoying my journey in life. I am now a vegan as well. So I'm just excited about life. I'm excited about the big picture of self-care, because for me, that's where it really is. It's really loving who you are to maneuver through life, literally, in a nutshell. So that's it in a nutshell, because we can keep talking and talking. And I don't want to be on here for 2 hours and 3 hours, like still talking about Toya.
Okay, well, I mean, you wear so many different hats, and there are so many facets of your person. You have been many places, and you have done a lot of things, and you have impacted a lot of people for good. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, we're going to talk about your journey. And I open up and I just think about, I'm like, oh my God, she was 18 years old, in love with her high school sweetheart. And at 19, you decided to marry this dude. I was like, where they do that at? Like, for real, like my girl married at 18. You gotta be kidding me. So you got married at 18. What was that about? 18, 19?
Well, I will say this. Then, it's like I'm in love, even though technically we don't really know what love is. We just assume we do based off of a feeling that we had.
Right.
But I think a lot of it had to do with just my upbringing at home, how my dad used to always be so strict on, you can't do this, you can't go here, you can't do this. So in my mind, I'm in love. If I move out, I can do whatever the heck I want to do. And that's reality, because that's really where it was. Not to say that I didn't think I was in love, because in my mind at that age, I thought I was in love from what I thought was really love, I should say. But most of it was it was two things. I felt like I was in love, and just so that I can get out of the house, live on my own, and do what I want to do in reality.
That's
Because
so interesting.
because I was in a household, and I know that my dad loved me in his own way, but it was so strict that I was like, I need to figure out something. And so when I was dating my high school sweetheart, he proposed to me. It's not like I knew he was gonna do it or any of that. He came up to my to the I was at Pivot Point. He came up there with flowers and everything and was like, let's get married. And I was like, okay. And we went to City Hall and we got married. And that's it, that's all.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, so how long? So he proposed that day. How long did it take for you guys to get to City Hall?
We went to City Hall that day. I had on my uniform, the flowers. His aunt took us, and I had on everything. Now we didn't do our what do you call it, like reception or anything until later, because where his grandmother was living on the north side, and she had a big party room. So we just used the party room, had our family and friends over, and we had a reception, and we was married. I was actually 19 and he was 18.
Wow, this is so interesting. I'm thinking like my daughter, my baby, she 21 years old, and I'm like, girl, you better not ever, ever, ever. Not in this space. I don't care what you think or none of that. You are not getting married to nobody. You don't even know who you are at 19 years
You
old.
don't.
You
You
know,
don't.
that's what I'm like, okay, well, what inspired this marriage? So, okay, so you're married, you're 19 years old, and then just a short time into your marriage, um, you became pregnant and decided to abort the baby. But at the same time, domestic violence was introduced to your relationship.
Mhm.
Take us to that place on your journey.
Well, the domestic violence kicked in. If I have to look at it now for that time in my space, I realize now that it was more so his insecurities, his jealousness, and then he was also cheating. So when he would get caught up is when he reacted in violence.
Okay.
And at that time, I didn't realize, well, at that time, I didn't know how not to say, oh, I got the information I need. I'm going to be quiet and just maneuver and do it. At that time, because I'm young, I'm hot headed, and I'm like, so you cheating on me with such and such? Oh, what's really going on? And so that's when the way I behaved triggered him to behave a certain type of way. And he was insecure and all of that because we was literally growing up together.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what we was doing. We just thought we was in love. And if you talk to him today, he probably would still be like we was in love, regardless of the fact that he was hitting me and all of those things, because his mindset was just as off as my mindset at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And his upbringing was, now that I know every detail, his upbringing was so much different than mine. Like his mom was always in and out of jail, in and out of rehab because she was an alcoholic, drug abuser. His siblings was in and out of foster care. He was the only one that wasn't in and out of foster care because his uncle raised him and his auntie. So he lived in two different households, but it was always just something. Nothing was never just peaceful.
Okay.
It was always an uproar or something. And that's just the reality. Like his upbringing was not the best, but he always got everything he wanted. But that family stability, they love each other to hate each other. It was just kind of haywire. Yeah, it was a bit much.
Okay, so you're married. And so these things are happening. You're married and you find that you're pregnant and you decide to abort the baby. Why? Why did you decide to not keep your child?
Because I felt like at the time, because the domestic violence was just introduced and it was more frequently, I felt like if I ever had to leave, it would have been worse. like trying to leave and take a child that's his child. Cause I already was like, he crazy. In my head, I'm like, he nuts. So if I felt like if I had the child, I would be like, it's gonna be too hard for me to escape because I got to think about myself in the child.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle to do it because I was like, you know, I'm technically an adult. I need to be responsible for my decision. And I talked with my best friend about it, and we both was, well, Toya, you shouldn't. And then she was like, but I get it, because she was there with me every step of the way. She saw every single thing that was going on. And she went with me. I made the decision. We went, and I had to live with that. I had to live with the choice that I made, but I'm not going to say I regret it, because at that moment, that's what I felt was needed. Yeah. I just prayed that, I know God is forgiving, so I knew he would forgive me. So I just had to maneuver and just deal with the decision that I made, and live with the choice.
So how does that affect you today? Because you mentioned in your post that your son, because it was a boy, no, that was another part. So we'll save that for later. I'm like, okay, no, this is not that. So okay, so it's bittersweet because I understand that you had to do what you needed to do to save your own life, but then you decided to still stay. So this guy, he was doing all of these things. You mentioned several things. He punished you for not getting on his scooter. He did a really malicious act, and it was like he almost tricked you to coming to him so that he can harm you. Then he hit you in the presence of one of his friends. He punched you in his stomach because he told you he didn't want a surprise party and his family wanted to give him a surprise. And when they say surprise, he turns to you and harm you in the presence of everyone that is there. Then the ultimate, he pulls a gun on you. What how could you manage that? That was a lot, and that was a lot of build. Help us to wrap our minds around what was going on with you at that time.
Well, for me, I would say, I'm always that person, and I'm always giving that person a chance. I always believe that people can change, but in the hindsight of things, they only change when they're really ready.
Right.
Not when I think they should change or hope they're going to change, when I'll need them to change. A lot of it in between that, we did kind of go back and forth with not staying in the same household, staying in the same household. So everything wasn't always just right there. I just was believing that he would change because of the things he would say, how he would act, the tears, and I'm so sorry, I don't know what came over me, I won't do it again. And he will get his act together for so long, but one little thing could trigger him. And it can be somebody, a guy looking at me, and he think it's my fault because you had this outfit on there and they looking at you. And then it wasn't like I was really wearing super sexy clothes, because I was still like a tomboyish kind. I was wearing gym shoes and cute jogging suits and stuff. But if somebody approached me and would be like, oh, you look really cute, and I could even say, oh, I'm with my husband, he would still be mad. So it's like, it's his insecurities now that I understand that. But then I'm like, what is wrong with him? I'm standing right here with you and you still acting a fool. And I'm showing you that I'm with you, because I've never been the cheating type, because my mom and dad was always together. So I always made sure that I literally was mimicking what I saw growing up, to be honest. But in my mind, I just wanted to believe that he was going to be different, because, my first boyfriend, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so in love. and he loves me with the love that we thought was love. In reality, it really wasn't love. We just was liking each other. I don't know what that was, to be honest. But the crazy thing is, because I believe in people and I always give them the benefit of the doubt, I understand now when I need to be somebody's friend from a distance and when I can be their friend close up. And I can still love you the whole 9 yards. Once I learned to forgive the things on my actions, it was easier for me to forgive somebody else, because I'm still friends with him to this day. So despite all of the stuff that happened, he'd text me every now and then and just be like, I just want to say hi, love you, and then that'd be it. It's crazy. People be like, what in the world? But I read something, and I don't know what book I was reading, but it said God forgives everybody. And I'm like, if he can forgive all the mistakes I've made, I can surely forgive all the mistakes he made. So that's how I'm able to forgive a lot of people, because I know God forgives people. So who am I to be like, oh, I ain't never talking to you again. Don't you text me. If you text me, I'm gonna be like, go kill yourself. I would never do stuff like that, because genuinely that's not the type of person I am anyway.
Right.
So when I read that statement, that was like an aha moment for me. So I forgive everybody.
So forgiveness is biblical and it is very necessary, because forgiveness happens for you and not the person that sinned against you. So that the principle is biblical. It is very necessary because it frees you. And you get to choose to do it God's way. So that is awesome. And I applaud that. um but when I'm thinking about, now you're 21 years old. So you're 21, you're a couple years into your marriage, and because you are not moving fast enough for him, he goes to the closet, gets a gun, pulls it to your head, and pulls the trigger. Did you like pass out? I mean, like, cause that I was just like, what in the heck?
I didn't pass out, but it was like a sense of darkness. It's almost like all the light that was in the house, I didn't see it anymore. It like totally disappeared, because the first thing I thought was, he got a gun and he about to pull the trigger. And instantly I was like, my mom and dad gonna have a fit. But then it was just darkness. And then the trigger did pull. And then when I realized that I was still standing, and he said, I would never do nothing like that. You didn't know, you would think I would put a bullet in here. And I'm sitting up here like, Negro, you pulled the trigger in pretense of me believing that it was a bullet in there. And so I just remember my dad telling me a long time ago, if people treat you dirty and treat you dirty, you have to respond the same way. So what they didn't know was that I had, certain things hidden to protect myself, because I was at home by myself a lot at night. And so I had a hammer under the bed. I had a little box knife. I had this little bitty bat. So I pulled out the hammer. And when he went into the closet to pull it out, to put it up and came back out, I just said, kabang, ran upstairs. And that's when I told my family, because prior to that, I was literally hiding everything.
Wow.
I was hiding everything because I didn't want them to look at him in a different light. I wanted them to have the picture that they always had of him. Now, interestingly, though, it was something that my dad didn't like. He never shared it, but he always used to be like, it's something about him. And in my mind, I just was figuring, oh, he just figured we too young to even be dating or be married. So that was the gist of it for me. But he saw more than what I saw.
Okay.
And he just never shared it, because my dad wasn't really that sentimental type of person. It was either you gonna do it this way or that's it. I'm not gonna do all this explaining, talk to you about the birds and the bees. That just wasn't him. But it was something that he didn't like. So now I understand what it was. It just never he just never was able to explain it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I literally saw my life ended at that moment, because when it got dark, I just was like, I'm not gonna be up off this floor. My mom gonna be doing a funeral, and my dad gonna be. It was just, yeah, that wasn't good at all. It wasn't good.
It's so much. There's so much to take in. There were so many details, and I so at 23, so we went from 21, you had the gun situation. At 23, you became pregnant again. Tell us about that season.
Well, and it was with the same person. But what I will say is, because I'm very transparent, and at the time, I had never really experienced any type of like drugs, like marijuana, stuff like that. And he was an avid smoker.
Mm-hmm.
And so every now and then I would explore with him. And that particular day, I believe I was probably high as a kite. Literally. I smoked, and it wasn't a lot that I smoked, but I did smoke some marijuana, and we got intimate. We wasn't in a relationship, like living under the same house, but I got intimate with him, and a couple of months later I realized that I was pregnant, went to the doctor, they confirmed it, called him, told him, and he was happy, but he wasn't happy because he was in a whole nother relationship. And I was like, at that point, I said, I'm going to have to live with the choice. And I decided that I was going to keep the baby. And I said, we got to figure out how to co-parent, and we going to be good. I said, I'm not going to interfere with this. You have to deal with that part on your own. But for my end, you won't have no problems. We're going to raise this child how he needs to be raised. You got your family, I got my family. The baby going to be happy. But after about, I don't want to say 6 months, I want to say more like 4.5, 5 months, I went to the doctor, and she told me that I would have to be on bed rest because I had fibroids really bad. And she said, the fibroids, as your hormones change, your fibroids will continue to grow. So we will have to put you on bed rest. And in my head, I'm like, how am I going to do that? I got to really go to work. Like, I'll be off 4 more months. So I was like, okay. So I had to figure that out. But what was interesting is that I went to the doctor, and she said I would have to be on bed rest. It wasn't literally 2 weeks later that I had another appointment, and I went back to his grandmother's house because I was dropping her off because she went with me to my visit. I go to the bathroom, and it was just like a whole bunch of, I don't even know what you call it, but it was in the toilet.
Sales.
Yeah. And so I was just like, oh my God, what is this? So I called Granny into the room, and I said, Granny, look. And she was like, we might have to go back to the doctor. I think you just lost your baby. And sure enough, I went back to the doctor, and that's every bit of what it was. So they had to do it. I think it's called a DNC.
Yes.
To make sure everything else was out. And I shared it with him, and it was like he was happy, but he wasn't happy, because I think he had already gotten wrapped around his mind that he was going to have a kid, and we was going to have to figure this thing out. But that was another hard part, because I had already set in my mind that I'm going to have a child, I'm going to take care of him, and we're going to be good. And that's it. That's all. But God had other plans. And so things worked out the way they needed to work out. So that was that part of it.
Yeah, and that is what I was speaking to earlier. How old would he have been today?
He would have been 20, 26, 26 or 26, 26. Yep, he would be 26, because Raina is 26. So they would have been the same age, because Tracy was pregnant with Raina at the time I was pregnant with our son.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who, yeah, that was a lot. And it's interesting that you would, just that your body would naturally just release the baby, because at 24, you had made the decision for divorce.
Mm-hmm.
What were the building blocks to you making that decision? Because, in my mind, from the gate, you had grounds for divorce in my mind. But okay, now you've miscarried your child that you guys would have shared together, and he was already in another relationship, so you now decided to file for divorce. What was that process like?
It was, I think at that time I was just kind of tired, and I was tired, but not tired enough to file at the time. But when all those different entities like piled up, all the women kept calling, all of this, I had initially filed for divorce prior. He never would sign the paperwork.
Hmm.
That was the thing. He never would sign the paperwork because in his mind, he felt like you will always be mine.
Yeah.
And it took until he really started liking someone else and he saw that I wasn't shifting with really coming back, even after the intimacy, after all of that, that I was just like, we still not getting together. It wasn't until then that he was like, okay, now I found, because he felt like he was going to be married to this other girl, but she had a whole nother plan. And it wasn't to be married. She just was getting what she could get because he was he was a really good provider.
Okay.
So when that didn't happen, he just went on ahead and signed the paperwork. But I had filed for divorce and was having him served several times. He just was dodging it for a couple of years before he signed the papers.
God.
So when he finally signed them, it was like a sense of, you know how you feel like you just have a whole bunch of heaviness on your shoulder? It just felt like it was like,
Yeah.
like it was like, I'm free, literally.
Refreshing.
I had a party and everything.
You had a divorce party, girl.
Yes, ma'am. Because it was a lot, from high school, from somebody you dated all through high school that never ever touched you until as soon as you get married, it's a whole different world. It's just nothing but chaos. It was some good stuff and it was some bad stuff. So I had to learn how to take all of the good stuff and actually really learn a lesson from all the bad stuff. Because a lot of times we don't really learn the lesson because we keep repeating it over and over and over again. But I had to learn how to just say, Toya, what is the lesson that you're getting from this?
Mm-hmm.
And are you going to keep repeating this lesson? Because it's something there that keeps drawing you back. And I mean, at the time, it's like, what is really drawing me back? Because I mean, he was my first boyfriend. I hadn't experienced nothing else.
Right.
So it's like, I really thought that in some crazy manner that we really was in love for something, whatever our love was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an interesting journey. I would go so far to even say I wouldn't even trade it. I'm glad I had those experiences because it allowed me to be where I'm at today. I'm able to share my story with people that need it, because some people don't even know how to get out of a situation like that. Some people think I don't want to share because I don't want nobody to think I'm crazy because I'm still here. You
Mm.
know, we're human. And
Yeah.
so we're gonna act off of our emotions more so than anything else. And a client of mine used to tell me this, and I never understood what she was saying, but she always used to say, your first reaction is not the best reaction because you always basing it off your emotions. She said, you have to sit back, go through those emotions, and just take some time before you react. And I never used to get it until I experienced something and was like, aha,
It
I
was a
got
light
it.
bulb moment.
Yeah, because I reacted a certain way that I knew wasn't me,
Mm-hmm.
but I was pissed. So my first reaction was out of my emotions, and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And that is I feel like people need to be able to differentiate between your emotions and what you really should be doing.
Yeah.
And it's hard because especially women, we emotional creatures.
Yeah. Yeah. We can allow our emotions to lead us, and our emotions should never be the leaders. The truth
Yeah.
should always lead us. And
Yes.
so having the opportunity to
Yes.
pause means a lot. When we can pause and reflect, then respond,
Yes.
not react.
Yes.
That is when we get the better outcomes. Unfortunately, in our humanity, that's not the way that it always go.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so the story goes on, and a few years later, you find your father dead.
Yeah.
That what what did that do to you? I mean, to find anyone deceased, but to find a parent void of life, what do you think that did to you?
First, I felt like uh, how do I want to say this?
How it is, however you want to say it.
The first reaction was, it was almost kind of like, how dare you? Like, what happened? But I know he was really battling with his own things that he had going on with his family, his upbringing. And I didn't learn that later until we all went to therapy with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a long time, I didn't know he was a functioning addict.
Okay.
And so when we went to some of his sessions, he shared with us how long he had actually been functioning. But it started with weed, and then he laced the weed. And then from that, it was just straight raw cocaine.
Okay.
And it was interesting because it was really majority of my life.
Wow.
I wouldn't have never even had a clue,
Really?
because my dad really, he made really good money. He was a hard worker. He had his own property. He was an electrician. Like, he was very functionable for him to be doing all of that.
He could
He was
afford it.
functioning really well,
Yeah.
but he was battling with how he was raised with his parents. I don't really want to single out anybody, but more so with his mom, because the love that he felt he was missing from her, she was given to the other siblings.
Got it.
And he struggled with that because he was the middle baby.
Mm-hmm.
So he struggled with pleasing her not accepting it, her doing things different from them, vice versa, and all of that. Um, so my first reaction when I saw it, I was just saw him there. I was one in shock, but I was like, well, maybe he just fell asleep. That was in my mind. But when I felt his body, he was so ice cold that I called the upstairs neighbor, and he came down. My mom at the time was living around the corner. They had separated. So then I called my mom. My aunt lived upstairs, and then she came down, and it was crazy because a friend had said they saw him out, I guess, getting drugs from one of the neighborhood kids or what have you. And it was an overdose. I mean, that's what they ruled it as. It was literally an overdose. And what was interesting was that he came in my room, because we was living in the basement at the time together. He
Uh-huh.
came in my room, and I had a bad habit of washing my clothes, and I would just leave them sitting in the dryer. When I needed something, I just pick out what I need and put it on, keep it going. But he was fussing at me. He was like, get these clothes out this dryer, put them up so I can do my own stuff. And that particular night, he came in my room and he was just talking to me. I knew he had already been drinking. I didn't know if he had been getting high, but he had been drinking with his neighbor. They was best friends. They would always drink and shoot pool together all day on his off days. So he was like, I just want to let you know that I love you. You know, you my baby girl, and da 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 da. Like he would, when he would drink, that's when he would pour his heart out.
Okay.
And so I was like, I know, I had to learn how to understand that he really loved me despite of him just being under the influence of alcohol. Because when he wasn't, his demeanor was he was so much meaner when he wasn't drinking or high or what have you. And we probably talked, Lolita, I promise you, it probably was like 45 minutes. And for whatever reason that night, he said, make sure you lock the door, your bedroom door, because I never locked my door. I always kept it open and go to sleep. But we had locks on our doors as if we needed to lock the door for whatever that reason was. I don't know. He had it when he built the basement, he put locks on all the doors. And he said, make sure you lock your door. So I locked the door, and it was like a boat lock. So it had a key. Right. So I locked the door, and I woke up that morning. The lights were still on, and I was like, that's weird. So, but the first thing in my head was, let me go get these clothes out these dryers before he wake up. And when I went in there, that's when I found him. He was right there. So I don't even know how long he had been there, but he was icicle cold, literally. And it was Easter. It was actually Easter 1993, on Easter. And that's when, what is it? Not caller ID. Was it caller? I think caller ID had just became popular, or either that *69 where you can call back. Mm-hmm. And at first I was just kind of like in shock, but I instantly still reacted, and I went and got the phone. Well, I went to the phone because at the time we didn't have, we still had the circle thing. So I called upstairs, and Anthony King came downstairs, and he helped me with the process. I called my mom, my aunt, and everybody came down. He called the ambulance. They came, got the body, and everybody came. And that was really it. It was, for a minute, I was living as if he was still here. Like I was always talk like he was still here. Yeah. And I didn't really, at the time, I didn't realize it, but I wasn't dealing with it. Like at the beginning, I didn't cry. I didn't do none of that. Because in my mind, it was like somewhere here, he was still really here, but he wasn't here. Yeah. It took a while for me to get to the space of dealing with it. It wasn't until a guy I dated, when we broke up, he was like, I think you have separation anxiety. Oh. And I'm sitting up here like, Negro, you got separation anxiety. I ain't got nothing going on with me. But he suggested for me to see a therapist. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, what could it hurt? And he was like, well, I'll go with you. But he only came to one. He never came to any other, because we was really in the process of just kind of splitting up. And at the time before my dad had passed, I had 2 dogs. They both died. One got killed and one died. And then some friendships. And so in reality, I did have separation anxiety. I wasn't dealing with it though. Mm-hmm. And she pointed it out with the homework that she would give me and things that we would talk about. I went to her for like 6 months, a little over 6 months. And that was the result. And that was really like, it was before I moved here. Okay. So that's how much later it was, because that's when I had the house in Hazel Crest with the salon in the basement. Mm-hmm. So that's when I went to her for 6 months, and I was like, I should have did this a long time ago. But because I never was taught to go and see a therapist or anything like that, I didn't think it was, beneficial. Not to say that I didn't think it was good, because people always think you crazy if you go. That wasn't my reality. It just never was introduced to me. Yeah. And so when I went, and it was actually fun, because we had homework assignments, we talked about stuff, and I knew what we talked about stayed there. Right. And we got into some deep rooted stuff that made me realize, you ain't deal with your daddy past, and you ain't dealt with this, you haven't dealt with that. And that's when the self journey really, really kicked in. The working out, the eating better, understanding when I need to love a relationship enough to not be in a relationship. Like
Mm.
all of those things started being like an aha moment. And it's to this day, it's still an everyday process.
Yeah.
Like people think you can learn this stuff and you good and that's it. No, you got to work on it every single day.
Every day. It's
And that was my aha moment. Even with the days you wake up and be like, I ain't doing nothing, and you fall off. You just got to know, fall off, kick, scream, holler, cry, whatever you got to do. But the next day is a new day to start all over again.
right. That's good. That's good. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. You know, I was just like, as if she had not been through enough already, you know. And then um just before you moved here at 41, you have a stroke. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
So what what so do you believe that before you had the stroke, had you already started seeing the therapist?
Yes.
Okay, so you had dealt with some things,
Mm-hmm.
but there was still there had to be some overwhelming stress on you for
Mm-hmm.
a blood vessel to burst in your head. So bring us into that picture.
At that time, I was in a relationship. We had been in a relationship for almost 5 years. And at that point in my life, I had a salon, 7 stylists working in a salon. I had my own life, the relationship, and just learning how to balance all of that. It was very challenging because, in a salon, when you're in a relationship and they want to take you out and you're like, oh, I'll be done at 6. And you look up and it's 7:30 or 8. And then after so many of those, then they like, I don't know if this is going to work, because you always saying you're going to be off at this time. You need to learn how to schedule your clients better, and you need to learn how to do this. So the conflict of interest there, making sure that the people at the salon is happy, realizing that you can't please everybody, and all the decisions you make, everybody not going to be happy with it, and you have to be okay with it. And outside of that, I had fibroid tumors. So that's stress on your body. Even though you feel you're eating right, certain things cause fibroids. They say they don't really know what it is. I believe, just from reading, it's the foods that we eat, truthfully, because we eat animals and meat and stuff like that, but they have hormones because they're getting pumped with stuff. So not only are we eating their hormones, then we got to deal with our stuff. It's just like all that combined, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you really don't take time for self, you can't balance that stuff. And it's always going to just feel like you moving, no pause, no nothing. And that's what I was doing at that time. I was just moving. Even though every now and then I was working out, because the guy I was dating, he was a fitness junkie. So I was working out, but the relationship wasn't where it needed to be. It wasn't. I knew a couple of times we should have just went our own separate ways.
Okay.
But because we both had been through bad relationships, in our mind, we kept saying, we're going to make this work,
Okay.
and we're going to support each other, and we're going to be there. But then when I was home and we had separated,
Okay.
we had broken up, and he just happened to come by the house, literally,
Wow.
and was like, T, what y'all doing? I'm in the neighborhood before I go to work. I treat us to a junk meal. So we had gyros. My Aunt Linda was staying with me at the time. He came by and we was eating, but I felt nauseous. We was eating the gyros and I started feeling nauseous. I was like, this better not be no spoiled food. I'm gonna go back up there and tell that on about himself. And he started laughing, but they wasn't feeling any type of way. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, well, I'm gonna stop eating, because I didn't even eat all of it. And I said, I'm gonna take a shower and I'm gonna lay down. I said, you're more than welcome to stay, watch whatever with my aunt. Just wake me up before you leave. So when he was getting ready to leave, he
Mm-hmm.
came in the room, and it was already dark in the room, but it still felt like a lot of light. It felt like a house was on my head, literally. And I don't get headaches. So I was just like, I just take an aspirin. So he was getting ready to get me an aspirin. And my aunt was like, I think you should go to urgent care.
Mhm.
And so I said, I'm gonna take this aspirin and I'm gonna lay down, because literally, even though the lights was out, I said it just feel like a whole bunch of light on me. I said I just want to get under the cover, make it super, super dark. And I said, besides, I can't find my insurance card, none of that. She said, just tell me where you think it is. And she said, again, I think you need to go to urgent care. So when she said it the second time, I looked at Jerome and I said, I think I better go to urgent care because I might get a whooping up in here. So I got my clothes on and everything, and I went to urgent care. Luckily, because I was in Tinley Park, urgent care was not even 5 minutes from me.
Okay.
So I went to urgent. Well, he took me. Jerome took me to urgent care, and we were just. When I got there, instantly, soon as the doctor asked me a question, he was sitting down and I was sitting down, and I threw up all the way where he was at. They call it
Oh,
projectile
vomiting.
vomiting.
Yeah. Wow.
And all of this back here on my neck, the tension that was so tight, that instantly, it was like, whoo, okay, I feel better. But my head was just like, doo doo, doo doo, doo doo.
Mhm.
And so he said, well, let me do a CAT scan. They did a CAT scan, came back to the room. My aunt holding my hand, he holding my hand, and I'm sitting up here rocking back and forth. And the nurse comes in, and I said, okay, what's the verdict? And she was like, well, I'm going to let the doctor come and talk to you. Girl, I started bawling. I'm like, she should have just not even came in the room. Because why even say something? Just go back where you was at. So
Right.
he came in the room, and he said, we've already called the ambulance. They're pulling up. We're rushing you to Christ Hospital because you had a blood vessel burst. We want to make sure you're not having an aneurysm. When he said aneurysm, I still didn't associate that with a stroke, but I knew what it was because my stepdad had it and he almost died.
Okay.
So then I was like, calm down. I tried my best to calm down, but the tears were still coming out. But they got me to the hospital so fast that I really didn't have the setbacks that most people have a stroke have.
Mhm.
I just had to let the blood vessel repair itself. So I was in intensive care for 6 days, but they did the aneurysm. I didn't have that. They did the test for that. I didn't have that. So I was just in intensive care, and they was just watching me very closely. And they had the pain medicine, the IV in my hand. So they said, anytime you feel any type of pain coming, just push it so that it can monitor that so it can heal itself and repair itself. But once I got on the floor, I was the only one, literally the only one on that entire hospital floor that didn't have to learn how to walk, talk, eat, or nothing. I was able to get up, do what I needed to do to just get my strength back. And I had a ton of people. When I got out of that operating area where they did the checking to see if I didn't have an aneurysm, when I say it's like people called the whole entire people in Chicago, because from the Desi's family, from my family to friends was in my hospital room. It was like 20 people like this in that little bitty room with people outside.
Mhm.
And what the neurologist told me, he said, whatever you had been doing before you came in here, he said, you make sure you keep doing that. And the two things that I had started doing was working out and eating better. Well, three things, and drinking a whole lot of water. I stopped drinking soda, juice, and all of that stuff. And he said, it's so key to have family. He said, because they help you fight and push through. He said, a lot of people in here, people not even coming to visit them. And that's why they can't move past where they are.
Mm.
And I was like, that's so crazy. And he was like, just keep doing what you're doing. And he said, whatever is causing you stress, release it. Now, what I was doing before that, I was on birth control pill that I had never been on because I had fibroids really bad. So my cousins was Googling the type of birth control I was. And a lot of people were saying that they had strokes and stuff behind it.
Oh, wow.
But I stopped that, but I released. When I say anything I felt was causing me stress, the relationship I had, we ended it, but we was on good terms because it was mutual. I sold the salon, and I just was like, I'm doing Toya and Toya only. And that's what I started doing. And when I let all of that go, I didn't feel like I was like, because when you have a salon, you the bookkeeper, you the cleaning person, you 20 different hats within that, and you still got to be a hairstylist.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be a mama, a wife, and all of that. That's a whole nother entity. I at least didn't have all of those things, but it's a lot. And when I let all of that go, I just felt like my shoulders was light as I don't know what. And then that's when I was so adamant about understanding what it really looks like to love yourself, because it was a lot of days I would be at home crying and kicking, and because you're lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you even have to understand being lonely is okay. It ain't a bad thing, because we look to be around somebody or in a relationship because we just don't want to be by ourselves. But you got to learn how to be by yourself, literally. And that's where I'm at. Being okay with being with Toya.
I love it. I love it. And it is very necessary. And it's so many women. And I don't even think that it's women alone. I think
Mm-hmm.
that men also, we can almost anesthetize pain with the presence of other people.
Yeah.
And, almost like a drug or alcohol or sex or whatever. And so sometimes you look at people and you like, well, you always act like you need to have a man, or dude, you go in and out of relationships like a revolving door, or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times that is because people are not looking at where they've been and how it affects the present, and then ultimately their future, right?
Yeah.
And so it would behoove us to, get some therapy sessions, some coaching sessions, something to help you to think outside of your box, for you
Mm-hmm.
to think outside of the gamut of what your family taught you. Because sometimes what's really unfortunate from family and friends is that we're taught dysfunction, you
Yeah.
know and so sometimes doing life the wrong way is okay with people that we genuinely love, and we have to check that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some good news though. So you have been able to maintain your health, and so tell us about the vegan journey. Tell us about all of the goodness that's coming up with the book, girl. Tell us the good stuff.
I'm super excited about it. I actually went on a challenge with a client of mine that really needed to lose weight. And she was like, Toya, I want you to do this vegan journey with me for just 31 days. And she said, like, and after that, I'm going back to eating meat. I was like, okay, I'll do it with you. So we were following a guy on Facebook, and he did 31 days of vegan with soul. So it was all soul food, but veganized. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be easy. And so I truthfully couldn't even get past the first four because I was repeating them meals over and over again because they were so good.
Okay.
But I'm not a person that cooks every single day either. I cook weekly because
Okay.
I meal prep a lot. And when I started that journey with her, before I realized that people were saying to me, your skin look different. Your energy looks amazing. Like, I like being around you because you always got a lot of energy. I want to learn how to do that. Not realizing that it was really just the foods I was eating, because I wasn't getting that before when I was eating meat. Nobody ever said nothing about my energy being nothing. And so after the 31 days, wasn't in my mindset to really release weight, but I did lose like 14 pounds with
Okay.
doing that journey with her. But my skin was flawless. I had so much energy. After I ate, I wasn't sluggish, none of that. When I would do my workouts, even though some of them were harder, I was able to get through them without always like, I'm about to take a whole 2-minute break before I go to the next one. I was able to take like 30 seconds and be ready to get back into the workout. And so I was like, this is not bad. But because I was so accustomed to eating fish, chicken, all the good stuff that we was eating growing up as a kid, I went back to eating meat. But it didn't even take me like 2 weeks. And I was only eating a little bit of meat, not even every day. But as soon as I started eating the meat, I would look in the mirror and it felt like my skin was aging to make me look older. Like I felt like I was looking older than what I was when I wasn't eating meat. Because when I wasn't eating the meat, everybody's like, you look so young. Your skin look flawless. You don't have no wrinkles, none of that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started back eating meat, but it took me one day, I went and got a hamburger. And I ate that burger and tore that burger up. It was so daggone good. But I was tired as I don't know what after I ate that burger. I was like, and I didn't like the feeling. I was so sluggish and I had so much more to do that day. And I was like, dang, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is the feeling I don't like right here. I don't like to feel like I can't finish my day because I want to eat some food that then weighed me all the way down.
Right.
And so literally that next week, any meat I had in my house, I gave it away and I stopped eating meat. I just went cold turkey. I didn't eat nothing. I had already stopped doing milk and cheese just because of the fibroids. So that wasn't the part. It was the meat part of it that was my vice because again, I grew up on it. You know, I like meat, but it's not, you can't pay me to eat meat no more just because of how I feel now.
Yeah.
I get it all the time. Even at the shop I'm at now, my friends are always telling me, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Because when you walk in here, it's like the whole shop light up. Aww. When you're not here, we feel the difference.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. It's deeper than just, it's deep because it's like you wouldn't even know you had that effect on people just because you don't eat meat.
Right.
And your vibrations and your energy is so in tune at the shop. I was off for a whole week last week because my little cousin found out he tested positive for COVID and he was at the house. So we had to go get tested and stay in the house.
Right.
And I'm getting text messages. Hey, you on vacation? Where you at? I'm like, no, I'm at home. And they like, we confused because we need your energy up in here. And I'm like, really? And the crazy part about it is I'm at the salon by myself most of the day by myself because a lot of them still work jobs. Mm-hmm. So they come in after the fact. But you can pay me. And it helps too that I like cooking too. So you know I enjoy cooking. So I'm super creative when it comes to the meals. Like my salad ain't gonna be no normal salad. You know, I'll figure out how to take all these recipes and probably make 4 or 5 different recipes with the same ingredients. So for me, because I enjoy cooking, it's fun to me to figure out how to make some good plant-based meals because people just think I'm eating lettuce, cucumbers, and tomatoes. I am eating those things, but I'm also eating carbs and other things. But I eat a lot of colorful foods. Mm-hmm. So the more colors you eat, the better off you become.
Right.
And you just got to be creative with it. I still do all the same stuff that everybody else eat. I just veganize them. If you eating chili, I'm going to make a vegan chili. If you eating quesadillas, I'm going to make vegan quesadillas. And them suckers going to still be good. I didn't got so creative. And I follow Tabitha Brown. That's my inspiration. She's an influencer. But she makes pecan meat out of pecans. I tried it and it was good, but I like the walnuts better. So I do walnuts and I season them and everything and put them into something. And let me tell you, people, unless I tell them, they don't know. Because I made some chili. Mm-hmm. And my mama was eating it and she says, I thought you said you didn't eat meat. I said, I don't, lady. She said, but it's meat right here. I'm looking at it. I said, them walnuts. She was like, no, they not. Teresa was like, yes, they are. I watched her put them in there. So I've learned how to make the walnuts mimic meat just from the process of the soaking process and putting some herbs and spices on there because you still need your protein at the end of the day.
Right.
And so I'm just excited. My cookbook, crossing my fingers and my toes and everything. It will be coming out very shortly. I had a little bit of a setback because the person that I used, the format was off once they uploaded it on Amazon and Kindle. Half the pages disappeared and the words was all over the place. So we just got it back from getting reformatted probably not even a week ago. And my coach is uploading it on Amazon and Kindle, but it takes 14 to 21 days or something before they approve it.
Uh-huh.
And once it's approved, then I will be launching the book, doing the book signing, and all of those good things. Because I have other cookbooks in mind, but I am not touching nothing until I know this one's uploaded and sealed and dealed. So,
Right.
but I love it. I really like it. It's crazy because a lot of people, oh, we can't go out to eat with Toya because she just gonna eat some plants. But when I get my meal and they look at their meal and look at mine, their meal be good, but everybody want to taste Toya food.
Mm-hmm.
Not the person that's just eating some plants.
Right.
But I create my meals. If they don't have a vegan option, I'll look on there and see what I can make as one whole meal, and that's fun for me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't trade it. I will probably never eat meat again, to be honest,
Wow. That's
because I
good.
really like how I feel, and I have all the energy in the world. My clarity, I feel, is better. I don't feel like my mind is so boggled and clogged and stuff like that. I just learn to make better choices with my food and learn to just take time to sit, like, and really think about the stuff that I need to do before I move forward. And so far it's been good. It's I mean, as you know, it's an everyday process, but it's been working really, really good.
And you look amazing. And
Thank
I
you.
agree. There is an exuberance about your person. I've known you for a really long time. And this season, if I am honest, I think it has been one of your best seasons. One of,
Thank you.
yeah. And I'm really happy for your progress and for all of your successes. Toya uh gets on Facebook. She started posting to hold herself accountable, but in the interim, she began to inspire others. And I happen to be a recipient of her inspiration as she encouraged her world around her to move your body. We
Mm-hmm.
got to keep moving. And so I started that process and I ended up losing quite a bit of weight after COVID. And, it wasn't just about losing weight for me, but it was about the feel. It was about, I liked who reflected the image reflected back to me in the mirror. I could appreciate it better. Back to the skin factor, the water intake, just the vibrations of your energy. They are a whole lot better depending on what your diet looked like. I was not a vegan and I did eat chicken and fish. But I still got really, really awesome benefits. And I owe you the big thank you of getting me started.
You're
Every
welcome.
morning she did a jump rope challenge, y'all. And I had not jumped rope like that in so long. I was crisscrossing. I was having me a good old time. And then I was like, hey, this is exercise. And I began to really enjoy it. And so I hope that you guys will do likewise, that you will continue to move, that you will
Mm-hmm.
continue to take introspection of yourself, and that you will make good decisions for your life. Because when there is pain within, when things are not going well, it can set up um all kinds of things in your body that does not serve you well and
Mm-hmm.
can land you in places you never want to go, like the hospital and sometimes even death. And so we don't want to see those numbers continue to rise. We want
Mm-hmm.
to bring that down so that we can live our best lives in the earth, as healthy human beings in good relationship with others, and that we have that great vibration of
Mm-hmm.
energy to share with others. Toya, any final words, any final things you would like to share with the audience before we get out of here?
Yes, and I think I have two things I want to share. The first one is whatever pain that you may be feeling or don't know how to come to terms with, figure out what that looks like for you as far as seeking some type of help to really deal with the pain. Because then my number two is it will get you to the place of learning how to love yourself, learning what makes you happy on the inside first and foremost, because after you work on the inside you're going to love the outside anyway.
Right.
So figuring out the pains that you need to address, don't let it go sit doormat, don't let it do none of that, because you can cause all type of ailments from strokes, heart attacks, you name it. So you want to deal with that head on, and if you need help, get help, because it's okay. And then two, just learning how to love yourself, learning how to be alone and figure out the things that make you tick, that make you mad or make you happy, so that when you are moving forward in any other type of relationship, friendship, marriage, you name it, you already have a sense of who you are and what makes you happy.
Yeah. That's good. That's good stuff. And on that note, it's so important for us to know that our happiness stems from within.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are not happy alone, you'll never be happy with someone,
That's it.
because your happiness has to come from you first.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally agree with that, and I'm so grateful that you mentioned it because it's so important. And so I just want to let's give Toya a hand. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you for joining us. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your transparency. Just thank you for being authentically you. This was a really, really great episode, and I hope that many of you, our audience, will be blessed by the best, the short hair guru. Uh, that you will gain some wisdom and some wisdom keys from the things that she shared. She shared so much, and and I just hope that for the people that are in relationships out there, that you take notice of the things that she shared along her journey and the things that she had to do to heal from the inside out, and that you can take those tools and that you can apply them to your own situation. So
Mm-hmm.
it has been great. It has been a great time with you all today. And like I said, I hope that something will bless your life. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will see you next time here at Navigating Life with Coach Lowe. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.